Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a necessary step back, clearing out all the clutter, and really diving into a philosophy that promises to redefine success. Not by what you accumulate, but by what you deliberately choose to shed.
That's right. We are going deep into the mindset of focus.
Our source material today is Greg McKeown's, well, truly transformative work, Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less.
And if you're thinking this is just another book about, efficiency or hacking your productivity, you're really missing the core of it. This is a fundamental overhaul of how we approach pretty much everything. Life, work, all of it.
Yeah, it's all about achieving the highest possible contribution, not just getting more stuff done.
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive is simple. We want to extract the core mindset shifts and, maybe more importantly, the actionable disciplines, the absolute must-dos that you need to start discerning the essential few from the trivial many.
We're basically trying to hand you the blueprint for gaining control. Control over your time, your energy, and ultimately your entire life's trajectory.
McKeown frames this with a really powerful visual right from the start, a dichotomy.
He does. On one side, you have the non-essentialist, and you should picture like a tangled, messy ball of yarn, just pulled in 100 different directions at once.
I think we can all relate to that image.
Oh, absolutely. This person tries to do it all. They major in minor activities. Their stress just goes up and up as the quality of their work goes down, and they feel constantly controlled by other people's agendas. They're just reacting all day.
And the other side of that coin.
That's the essentialist. And the visual there is a clear, sharply focused circle. Simple, clean.
Less but better.
Less but better. They do only the vital few things. And this disciplined approach, this courage to say no, is kind of counterintuitively the key that unlocks the next level of achievement. And I think most profoundly, personal freedom.
So that's our goal today, to figure out how to untangle that messy yarn and, draw that clean, focused circle in your own life.
Okay, so let's start with this concept of choice, because I think if you're a high achiever, you're competent, you probably think you're in control.
Right, you think, I make choices all day long.
But the book gives this really poignant example of how easily we lose that feeling of agency. It's the story of the successful executive who just couldn't say no.
And this guy was, by all measures, a rising star. Super successful, talented, and he genuinely wanted to contribute. He wanted to please people.
Which is a good impulse, right?
It is, but it became his downfall. He found himself just rushing from one meeting to the next, fielding conference calls, trying to answer every single email day in, day out. He was always busy, operating at 100% capacity.
But the actual result was?
Rito?
The result was that he was majoring in minor activities. So his work became really unsatisfying, and ironically, he ended up frustrating the very people he was trying so hard to please because he couldn't deliver quality on anything that was actually important.
So his stress goes up, his real contribution plummets.
Exactly. And when he's finally offered early retirement, he has this moment of clarity. He realizes he doesn't want to quit entirely, he just wants to contribute to things that truly mattered.
So he goes to a mentor.
He does, and his mentor gives him this radical, really counterintuitive advice that is, I think, the first cornerstone of essentialism. He says, stay, but do what you would do as a consultant and nothing else. And don't tell anyone.
Wow, don't tell anyone. That's the key part.
It's the key, because it forces this radical internal prioritization. He started making a daily commitment to do only those things he deemed absolutely vital for his highest contribution, and he just ignored the other non-essential requests.
That must have taken immense courage.
Oh, for sure. He had to let people down gently, but ultimately it led him to his highest point of impact, and most importantly, he got his agency back.
Which brings up the big question. Why does this trap ensnare so many intelligent, ambitious people? Why is it so hard to answer that one essential question? What is the one thing I could do that would make the highest contribution?
Well, the book calls it the paradox of success, and it's a profound psychological trap.
How does it work?
Your early success often comes from focus, from an essentialist approach, whether you call it that or not. But then that success generates a reputation. It generates more opportunities, more demands on your time.
So people want a piece of you.
Everyone wants a piece of you. And you start saying yes to things that are just good opportunities, not the truly essential ones. And right there, your focus, the very thing that created your success, starts to diminish.
And the worst part is the immediate social feedback. You're actually punished in the moment for good behavior. Saying no feels awkward, right? It feels confrontational.
It feels awful. You feel that immediate social discomfort. But on the flip side, you're often rewarded for the bad behavior. Saying yes gets you immediate praise, gratitude, goodwill.
So it sets up this vicious cycle.
A totally vicious cycle. The known essentialists keep saying yes until they're completely overwhelmed and their contributions are spread so thin they become meaningless. The essentialist has to learn to prioritize the long-term integrity of their focus over that short-term comfort of saying yes.
This feeling of powerlessness, even for a successful person, it feels deeply psychological. And the book draws this really strong, almost devastating parallel to a classic experiment.
Yeah, the work by Martin Seligman and Steve Mayer on German Shepherds.
Right, learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness. It is the single most important concept for understanding how we forget our own ability to choose.
Can you walk us through how the experiment was set up? Because the details are what make it so powerful.
Sure, they had 3 groups of dogs. All were placed in harnesses and given mild, short electrical shocks. Group 1, they had a lever they could press with their nose, and the shock would stop immediately. They had clear control.
Okay, so they learned cause and effect.
Right. Now, Group 2 was in an identical setup,
Yeah.
but the lever, it didn't work. They were completely powerless. They just had to endure the shock. And Group 3 was the control. They got no shocks at all.
And then the real test came later.
Exactly. They put all the dogs in a chamber where they could easily escape the shock by just jumping over a low divider. A simple action.
And the results were
Dramatic.
completely dramatic. The first group, the ones who always had control, they jumped to safety right away. The third group, who hadn't been shocked before, they also learned to jump pretty quickly.
But the second group?
The second group, the ones who had experienced that prolonged powerlessness, they didn't even try to escape. They just laid down and whined, enduring the shock even though freedom was literally a short hop away. That's a brutal parallel. The idea that we literally forget we have a choice just because we've been in situations where we felt we didn't.
That's the core insight. The experience of being powerless caused the dogs to forget their ability to choose later. They had learned that nothing they did mattered. And this mirrors the human experience perfectly. When we continually let others hijack our time, we diminish our own agency. We stop even asking what is essential because we've been conditioned to believe we have no choice.
So the power of choice isn't lost, it's just forgotten. And the first discipline is just remembering it's there.
So once we've reclaimed that power of choice, we move into the discipline of discernment. How do you sort through the sheer volume of tasks and opportunities? And it starts with a philosophy from Richard Koch, basically the unimportance of practically everything.
This is the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
But applied much more ruthlessly.
Exactly. The idea that most of our actions, our resources, our ideas, they have very little value. But a few things, the essential few, yield this tremendous disproportionate impact.
And this really challenges that deeply ingrained belief that hard work is always rewarded linearly. You work twice as hard, you get twice the results.
And nothing embodies that belief more than the character Boxer, the horse from Orwell's Animal Farm.
Oh, Boxer. Such a tragic figure.
He was the strongest, most diligent animal on the farm, but his answer to every single setback was always the same. I will work harder.
And his brute force effort actually made things worse over time until he was just completely broken. It makes you ask, for capable people already working hard, is there a point where doing more just doesn't produce more?
Right. The essentialist argues that doing less, but making sure that less is the absolute right thing, actually produces exponentially better outcomes. Sheer effort isn't enough. You have to aim the cannon in the right direction.
It's a huge shift from linear thinking to trying to find these points of nonlinear rewards. The book has a great little anecdote about 2 summer jobs.
Yeah, the paper route versus washing cars is a perfect example. Delivering papers paid about £1 per hour, a 1-to-1 linear ratio.
Standard stuff.
Totally. But washing neighbors' cars paid £2 per car. And if you could wash 3 in an hour, that ratio instantly becomes 1-to-6.
Same amount of time, 6 times the reward.
Just by choosing an activity with higher intrinsic leverage, the essentialist is always hunting for that leverage point.
And this carries over into professional life. There's another story about working at a coaching company.
They realized that the single most valuable result they could generate was winning back customers who were trying to cancel. That was the bottleneck, the highest leverage point.
So instead of just doing routine tasks for $9 an hour.
Right. He focused his effort exclusively on that one essential task and achieved a 0 cancellation rate. He learned more, earned more, and contributed more than he ever could have by just, shuffling papers.
And then you have these really extreme examples of discernment, like Ferran Adria, the chef of El Bulli.
Adri is the embodiment of less but better. His cooking is about reducing dishes to their absolute purest essence. And his business choices are just as radical.
You were talking about the reservations.
2 million requests for dinner reservations a year. 2 million.
That's insane.
It's staggering. But El Bulli only served 50 people a night. And this is crucial, they closed for 6 months of the year.
Most businesses would hear 2 million and think, how do we scale up?
But he chose quality over scale.
Yeah.
He knew that time off, that space, was essential for creativity. He optimized for quality, not volume.
This even gets into something called the power law, where the results can be, what, exponential?
Exactly.
Right.
Nathan Myhrvold, the former CTO of Microsoft, suggested that the top software developers might be, and this sounds hyperbolic, 10,000 times more productive than average.
10,000.
The number isn't the point. The insight is that certain essential efforts, deep strategies, foundational problem solving, produce exponentially better results than just being busy.
So once you've discerned what's essential, you have to face the brutal reality of trade-offs. As Michael Porter said, strategy is about making deliberate choices. It's about what you will not do.
And the classic example of this is Southwest Airlines.
The only major U.S. airline that was consistently profitable for decades.
Their whole success was built on rigorous, essentialist trade-offs.
Yeah.
They decided to be the low-cost, point-to-point airline.
Right.
And they enforced that with deliberate choices.
Right. No meals, unassigned seats, coach only.
These weren't just minor tweaks. They were fundamental decisions to support one single, clear strategy. By accepting those trade-offs, they made their strategy sustainable and really hard to copy.
And the danger of ignoring trade-offs is shown by the failure of Continental Light. They tried to straddle.
It was a disaster. They tried to be two things at once. They copied some of Southwest's practices, like lower fares, but kept their existing incompatible business model.
And the result?
Financial catastrophe. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars and got 1,000 complaints a day because their system just couldn't handle it. Trying to do both meant they were excellent at neither.
This even applies to ethics, which we see in the powerful story of the Johnson & Johnson Tylenol crisis in 1982.
When 7 people died from cyanide-laced Tylenol, J&J faced this massive trade-off. Is their priority customer safety or protecting shareholder value?
A huge decision. Recalling every bottle nationwide must have seemed like corporate suicide at the time.
It did. But their clarity came from their credo, a document written way back in 1943, literally carved in stone at their headquarters.
And that credo was essentialist.
Totally. It clearly listed their constituents in priority order. Customers first, employees second, community third, shareholders last.
So that prioritization was their anchor.
It made the tough decision clear. The $100 million recall was a painful trade-off, but it was the right trade-off according to their essential values, which they'd defined decades earlier. The lesson is, we all need a personal credo. You have to know what's most important to you before the crisis hits. To execute on what's essential, you first have to create the space for deep thought. Picasso said, without great solitude, no serious work is possible. And the essentialist gets that. Sometimes the most important work is just being unavailable.
Which feels so countercultural today, with constant connectivity being the norm.
It is. But some companies are getting it. Frank O'Brien, founder of a marketing company, started this radical practice called Do Not Call Monday.
What did that involve?
Once a month, all 50 employees gather. No phones, no email, no agenda. It's an enforced escape, even from clients. It's designed simply for quiet thinking and discussion.
So it's not about being more productive in the short term. It's about making sure you're solving the right problem.
Exactly. The non-essentialist fixates on solving the one immediate problem. The essentialist creates space to explore 100 possibilities first.
And you can actually design your physical environment to help with this. The book mentions Stanford's D School.
Yeah, they use these uncomfortable foam cubes instead of couches, so people are encouraged to stand up, walk around, and engage. It forces new perspectives.
And then there's the Booth Noir.
Right? A windowless, soundproof, no-tech little room. The only reason to go in there is to think, or to have a completely undistracted conversation. It's literally building boundaries against the trivial.
This kind of commitment to uninterrupted thought has a great name. Monk mode.
It does. One executive, to finish a project, literally went to a motel with no internet for 8 weeks. Just solitary confinement to focus.
And you can't talk about this without mentioning Isaac Newton.
I mean, he spent 2 years working almost exclusively on Principia Mathematica. When he was asked how he discovered the law of universal gravitation, He just said, by thinking on it continually.
Continually for 2 years.
The author himself did this while writing the book. He blocked off 8 hours a day, 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., and sent an email bounce back that just said, in monk mode. That kind of disciplined unavailability creates profound focus.
But that intense focus has to be balanced by something that non-essentialists often dismiss as, frivolous, and that's play.
The non-essentialist thinks play is trivial, a waste of time. Something you do after the serious work is done, which of course means never.
But the essentialist knows it's a vital driver of creativity.
The research is so compelling. Stuart Brown, founder of the National Institute for Play, he's found that play fundamentally rewires the brain. It leads to plasticity, adaptability, creativity.
There's that study about the grizzly bears, right?
Yeah. The bears that played the most survived the longest in changing environments. Play literally prepared them for an unpredictable world. It builds resilience.
And some really innovative companies get this. Dick Costello started improv classes at Twitter.
And you see it in the physical environments at places like IDEO with their microbus meeting room, or Pixar where offices look like saloons or huts. It all challenges that non-essentialist logic that play is trivial. It's vital exploration.
Okay, so from creating space for thought, we have to move to protecting the most essential asset of all, your own physical and mental capacity. And this brings us to the really difficult story of Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff was a successful microcredit CEO, an overachiever, totally driven. He was traveling constantly, 60 or 70% of the time, and he celebrated operating on just 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night.
He saw it as a badge of honor.
He did, until his body just started failing him. At 36, things began shutting down. Erratic heart rate, inability to digest food, dangerously low blood pressure.
And his performance suffered too.
Massively. He'd have to cancel meetings or bomb speeches because his brain was just too cloudy to think clearly.
So his doctor gave him a choice.
A devastating trade-off. Lifelong medication or disengaging from everything, his company, his boards, everything, for a year or two to let his body recover.
That must have been an agonizing choice for a guy like that.
It was. He resigned from everything. And 2.5 years later, fully recovered, he shared the simple, essential lesson he learned. Protect the asset. He'd been treating his own body like a machine that didn't need maintenance, and it nearly cost him everything.
This is so important because it just shatters that whole sleep stigma. And the data from people like Charles Czeisler at Harvard, it's just undeniable.
Czeisler's point is so powerful. Going 24 hours without sleep, or even just a week of only 4 to 5 hours a night, gives you an impairment equivalent to a 0.1% blood alcohol level.
So legally drunk.
Legally drunk. We would never celebrate someone making million-dollar decisions while drunk, but we celebrate people who are functionally impaired by sleep deprivation. It's absurd.
And the data on high performers, like the violinists study?
Right. The best students didn't just practice more, they slept more, an average of 8.6 hours a night, plus naps. They optimized for rest, which enabled maximum concentration during their practice.
So it's not about time spent, it's about the quality of energy you apply.
Exactly. And sleep actively boosts problem solving. A German university study showed that a full night's sleep doubled the number of volunteers who could find a hidden code in a puzzle.
Doubled it.
It literally restructures information in your brain. And that's why you see guys like Jeff Bezos and Mark Andreessen now championing 7-8 hours of sleep. It's not a luxury. It's a massive competitive advantage. It's a restorative companion to the discerning essentialist mind.
So once we know what's essential and we've created the space and protected our asset, the first big barrier to execution is just having the courage to protect that choice.
The discipline of saying no. This is where most non-essentialists fail.
And the book uses the really powerful example of Rosa Parks to illustrate this. Her resolute, "No, I'm not moving," was obviously essential and historic. But what's fascinating is that she wasn't, a just generally assertive person.
That's the key insight. She admitted in her own account that she was previously too timid to say no when offered a minor role in the NAACP. Her courage on the bus didn't come from some inherent personality trait.
It came from a deep conviction in that specific moment.
Exactly. A determination to avoid the humiliation she'd experienced her whole life. The essentialist mindset is about knowing which commitments are so vital that it's worth any social risk to protect them.
Okay, but for the listener who isn't trying to spark a civil rights movement but just needs to protect their schedule from their boss, the book gives some incredibly practical techniques for saying no.
This is where we need to spend some time because the social pressure is immense. The first technique is using no but. It softens the refusal while still setting a clear boundary.
So give us a script. Say you're asked to join some time-consuming committee that's not essential for you.
You could say, I'm completely swamped with the Q4 report right now, which is my top priority, but I would be happy to review the final draft for typos before the meeting.
So you set the boundary, but you still offer a limited, valuable contribution.
You maintain the relationship while protecting your time. The second technique is simply creating a pause. Don't get rushed into a decision.
Right, because non-essentialists commit because they feel cornered in the moment.
Exactly. So just say, let me check my calendar and get back to you. That simple phrase buys you the time you need to reflect and decide if the request is truly essential before that impulse to please just takes over.
Okay, what's next? This one is a bit more daring. The strategic use of email bounce backs.
Right. If we use auto responses for travel, why not for focus time? The author used one with the subject line in monk mode, explaining he was in deep writing time. It manages expectations proactively.
And then there's the one for dealing with superiors, which is maybe the most powerful. It's the strategic question. Yes, what should I deprioritize?
This one is brilliant. It refuses to accept the burden of the trade-off yourself. If your boss asks you to take on a new project, you reply, yes, I'm happy to make this a priority. Which of these other essential projects should I deprioritize to give this the attention it deserves?
You force them to confront the reality of the trade-off. You turn it from a compliance request into a strategic conversation about resource allocation. And that resource is your time.
Exactly. And finally, there's the phrase, you are welcome to X, I am willing to Y. This is great for personal boundaries.
So your friend asks you to pick them up from the airport at 5 a.m.
You are welcome to borrow my car for the trip.
Yeah.
I am willing to make sure the keys are here and the tank is full for you by 4:30 a.m. It clearly, but kindly, says, I'm not driving you, but frames it in a way that's supportive.
Saying no leads us right into the next discipline, which is uncommitting. Cutting your losses when you realize you've made a non-essential choice. And the classic example here is the Concorde fallacy.
The Concorde was a technological marvel, but a financial disaster from day one. It lost money for decades.
So why did they keep funding it?
Sunk costs. The British and French governments had invested so much money, so much national pride, they just couldn't stand the embarrassment of admitting defeat. It's the classic throwing good money after bad scenario.
So we have to move past that status quo bias, just continuing something because we've always done it or because we've invested too much to stop now.
The essentialist has to practice this kind of radical honesty.
Mm.
And sometimes we need a neutral second opinion to do that. Someone who isn't burdened by our sunk costs can just say, you don't have to keep doing this right. And that can be liberating.
To fight that fear of missing out, or FOMO, and the sunk cost trap, the book introduces a really cool technique, the reverse pilot.
This is great. Instead of testing a new idea, you test whether removing an existing, possibly non-essential activity has any negative consequences.
Like the executive with that complex weekly report?
Right. It took a ton of team energy to compile as an institution, so he just stopped publishing it.
And what happened?
Nothing. After several weeks, nobody had mentioned it. Not a single person. He correctly concluded it was non-essential and eliminated it forever. The silence was the answer.
So you can apply this to your own life. Just stop doing some non-mandatory thing and wait. If nobody misses it, you've just liberated vital time and energy.
So once we've cleared the clutter, the execution itself needs to become effortless and sustainable. The non-essentialist goes big and then flares out. The essentialist starts small and celebrates consistent, compounding progress.
And the story of the Positive Tickets program in Richmond, Canada is such a fantastic example of this. Their traditional policing methods led to a massive 65% recidivism rate among youth.
Just not working. So the superintendent, Ward Clapham, he realized the essential goal wasn't just punishment. It was community well-being and reduced future crime.
So they shifted their focus.
Completely. They started proactively rewarding positive behavior.
Wow.
Simple things like throwing away litter or wearing a helmet. Instead of fines, they gave out positive tickets.
Redeemable for what?
Little things like free movie tickets or ice cream. It totally changed the dynamic from punitive to encouraging. And this small, consistent effort, this small wins strategy, it dropped youth recidivism from 65% to just 8%.
Wow, that's a staggering difference.
It shows that small, essential efforts can achieve exponentially better results than massive reactive ones.
And this leads right into the idea of minimal viable progress, like a minimal viable product in tech.
Exactly. The question is, what is the smallest amount of progress that will be useful and valuable to the essential task right now?
It's how you avoid perfectionism. And Pixar does this.
They do. Before they commit to a full multi-million-dollar script, they start with storyboards, a comic book version of the film. They cycle through ideas hundreds of times to learn as quickly and with as little effort as possible.
So you're constantly seeking the easiest path to the next essential checkpoint.
And the way the essentialist achieves this kind of frictionless execution is through flow, which is enabled by the genius of routine.
Routine gets a bad rap sometimes as being stifling.
It does, but it's actually liberating. It makes difficult things become easy because you're strengthening those neural connections through repetition. The difficult choice becomes an instinctive reaction.
Like Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympic swimmer of all time, his pre-race routine was just extraordinarily precise.
It was sacred. Always arrive 2 hours early, a precise stretching pattern, sit but never lie down, always enter the blocks on the left side, dry the block. Every single step was predetermined, non-negotiable.
But it wasn't just physical, right? He had a mental routine, too.
Watching the videotape, his coach called it. Every night before bed and every morning upon waking, he would visualize the perfect race in slow motion. If anything went wrong in the mental video, he'd rewind and correct it.
So by the time the actual race started,
He'd already won it in his head hundreds of times. The real thing was just a natural extension of the routine. It eliminated the need for thought in that high-stakes moment.
to get that kind of flow, you have to overhaul your triggers. Habits follow that cue routine reward loop.
So if you want to change a non-essential routine, like checking your email the second you wake up, you connect the existing cue, the alarm clock, to a new essential routine, like reading or meditating.
And Ray Zinn, the CEO of McKeown, he had one single rule for his day.
Focus on the hardest thing first. By conquering that essential mountain at the start of his day, everything else just flows naturally downhill.
Okay, finally, we have to maintain that focus by being fully present. The book talks about the two Greek words for time.
Right. There's chronos, which is quantitative, chronological time, the ticking clock we're all racing against.
And the other.
Kairos. This is qualitative, opportune time. You only experience it when you are fully in the moment, when execution is frictionless. In practical terms, we only ever have now to get essential things done.
The rugby coach Larry Gelwicks trained his players on this with the acronym WWENN.
What's important now? It stops them from dwelling on the last mistake or worrying about the final score. It forces them to execute frictionlessly in the immediate moment.
So for the listener, when you feel overwhelmed, the immediate action is to stop, maybe tidy up your desk, and ask yourself that question. What is most important this very second?
And cross off everything else. You can also get the future out of your head by just writing down future ideas on a someday list. It frees your mind to be present for the current task.
And we can end this with that simple, powerful ritual from Jeff Rogers, the executive.
When he gets home, he stops at the door, closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and lets the work issues fall away on the exhale.
The pause that refreshes.
It is, and it enables him to be completely present with his family. It's the final essential act of protecting the asset.
So this deep dive into essentialism, it really reveals that the life of less but better isn't about being lazy or relaxed. It's one of profound discipline, of clarity, and these deliberate moment-to-moment choices.
It's the absolute antithesis of what Socrates called the barrenness of a busy life.
Yeah. We've covered so much, from recognizing those invisible chains of learned helplessness to enforcing painful trade-offs to executing with the frictionless genius of a Michael Phelps routine.
The whole approach is about liberating us from the tyranny of the trivial many, so we can focus our finite energy where we can make our absolute highest contribution.
And as we end this, let's turn one of the disciplines we talked about into an immediate, actionable step for you, the listener. We talked about uncommitting, fighting FOMO, and using that reverse pilot technique.
Right, just stopping a non-essential activity to see if anyone even notices or misses it.
So we'll leave you with this provocative thought, maybe an invitation to some immediate liberation. Based on everything we've unpacked today, what specific casual commitment, small non-essential task, or inherited routine in your life will you use a reverse pilot on today?
What will you simply stop doing right now to create more vital space and presence in your life?
Thank you for joining the deep dive. We hope this exploration helps you pursue less but better.